There comes a time in life when everything feels like it's falling apart. You wake up one morning and the world you've always known suddenly feels unfamiliar. The things that used to bring you joy no longer light you up. The conversations that once felt warm and easy now feel distant. Like you and the people around you are speaking different languages. Even your own home, the place filled with memories, feels cold. Almost like a museum of a life you no longer belong to. And you can't help but wonder, what's happening to me? Did I make a wrong turn somewhere? I want you to pause right there and take a deep breath. Because what you are going through isn't a mistake. It isn't the end of your story. It is a sacred in-between, a transition space, like standing in the silent pause between two heartbeats. It may feel empty, even terrifying at times. But this space holds a quiet power. It is here, in this stillness, that transformation begins. You are standing between chapters of your life. The old chapter is closing. And though it may have been painful or beautiful or both, it is no longer your home. And the new chapter, it's not fully revealed yet. You can't see the full picture. And that uncertainty can feel like darkness. It's like walking across a bridge shrouded in fog. You can't see where it ends. But you can feel that there's something waiting on the other side. This moment is what I call a quantum shift. It's not just a small change. It's a profound inner realignment, a restructuring of your energy, your identity, and your path. In this shift, you are no longer a perfect fit for the old version of your life, but you're not fully anchored in the new one either. It's uncomfortable, yes, but that discomfort is a sign that you are outgrowing who you once were. Think of it like a snake shedding its skin. During the shedding process, the snake becomes vulnerable, rough, and unrecognizable even to itself. It can't rush the process or force the new skin to appear faster. It must simply allow the old layers to fall away in their own time. That's what you are going through right now. The things that feel like loss, the relationships fading, the passions dissolving, the old dreams crumbling, are not punishments. They are simply the parts of you that no longer resonate with the frequency of who you are becoming. This space between chapters is tender and fragile. Your mind may fight it. It will want to cling to what feels familiar. Even if that old life no longer fits, it will demand answers, timelines, proof that everything will be okay. But here's the truth. The mind cannot see the full picture yet. Only your deeper self, your consciousness, knows what is being woven beneath the surface. And in order to hear that inner wisdom, you must slow down and listen. Just as a seed must rest in darkness before it can sprout, you too must rest before you rise. It may feel like nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, everything is rearranging itself. The pieces of your life are aligning to create something new, something far greater than what you've known. So, if you find yourself in this quiet, disorienting space right now, please know this: you are not broken. You are not lost. You are in the sacred pause, the moment when the universe whispers, "Wait, there's more for you than this." Your only task now is to trust the process. You don't have to force the next chapter into existence. You don't have to fight the closing of the old one. Instead, you allow, you breathe, you stay present. When you do, life will begin to move in harmony with you. And one day, perhaps sooner than you expect, you will look back and see this time for what it truly was: not an ending, but a beginning, the quiet birth of the highest version of yourself. This is not the moment you fall apart. This is the moment you come home to who you really are. 1. Stillness as the foundation for a quantum leap. There is a particular kind of silence that feels almost unbearable at first. It's not the soft, comforting quiet of an early morning before the world wakes up. It's deeper, heavier, like standing in the middle of a vast, empty field, with no signs of life around you. In this phase of your journey, you might feel as if you've been left behind. The familiar sounds of the world, the chatter of friends, the busyness of work, the rhythm of plans and goals seem to fade away. and what remains is just you and the quiet. At first, that silence can feel frightening. We live in a culture that worships movement and noise. We're taught to measure our worth by how much we accomplish, by how many boxes we check off a never-ending list. To sit still, to not be productive, feels almost wrong, as if by doing nothing, you are somehow falling behind. But this silence is not a punishment. It is not proof that you've been abandoned or forgotten. It is the soil in which your new self is quietly taking root. Just as a seed must disappear beneath the earth before it can sprout, there are times when you must disappear into stillness before you can grow into who you are meant to be. This is not stagnation. This is sacred preparation. In our everyday lives, we are so used to reacting to everything around us. The news, other people's moods, our own racing thoughts. It's like standing in the middle of a crowded train station, with voices shouting and trains rushing past, never stopping long enough to hear your own heartbeat. When life suddenly goes silent, it can feel disorienting. Your mind might panic, whispering, "Something's wrong. Do something. Fix this." But that urge to fix, to control, to force movement, is exactly what keeps you trapped in the old patterns you are trying to outgrow. Stillness is where the quantum leap begins. It's not in the frantic doing or in the endless planning. It's in the space where you stop reacting and simply exist. When you allow yourself to sit in that space, to breathe, without trying to change anything, you start to feel something subtle, something deeper than words. This is the rhythm of the universe, and it has been speaking to you all along. You just couldn't hear it over the noise. In the beginning, sitting in this stillness may feel like standing in darkness. You might feel lost, like nothing is happening. But beneath the surface, profound shifts are taking place. Think of a caterpillar inside a cocoon. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening at all, just a still, quiet shell hanging from a branch. But inside, a total transformation is underway. The old form is dissolving so that something entirely new can emerge. Your stillness is the same. While your outer life may seem paused, your inner world is being rewritten. Old beliefs are crumbling. New energy is taking shape. And all of this is happening in silence, in ways your mind can't see or understand. When you stop reacting and start simply being, you give space for wisdom to rise naturally. Decisions that once felt complicated become clear without effort. Healing begins to happen, not because you forced it, but because you finally stopped interfering. It's like a muddy river settling after a storm. When the water is constantly stirred, you can't see the bottom. But when you allow it to be still, the sediment slowly falls away, and the water becomes clear. The same is true for your mind, your heart, your spirit. In stillness, clarity comes not from thinking harder, but from letting the turbulence settle on its own. This is why the most profound changes often begin quietly, in the moments when nothing seems to be happening. It is in these pauses that you are aligning with something much greater than yourself. And here's the paradox. The more you allow this stillness, the more life begins to flow effortlessly around you. You no longer need to chase or control. You no longer need to push for answers or outcomes. Instead, you find yourself guided by a deep, intuitive, knowing, a quiet inner compass that points you toward the next step without strain. So if you are in this space right now, if everything feels silent and still trusted, you are not stuck. You are not broken. You are in the fertile ground of transformation. This is the foundation of your quantum leap. Stay present. Breathe. Listen. From this stillness, the life you've been longing for will begin to take shape, naturally and beautifully, without you having to force a single thing. Because the truth is, you were never meant to fight your way forward. You were meant to grow into it, like a river flowing freely toward the sea, carried by a current far wiser and stronger than you could ever imagine. 2. Emptiness as a sign of evolution. There comes a moment on the journey of transformation when life begins to lose its old colors. The conversations that once excited you now feel dull. The activities that used to fill your days with purpose no longer seem meaningful. Even your dreams, the ones you worked so hard to achieve, may suddenly feel empty, like hollow shells of something you've outgrown. At first, this can be deeply unsettling. You may find yourself asking, "What's wrong with me? Why don't I care about these things anymore? Am I broken?" But this emptiness is not a sign of failure. It is not proof that you've lost your way. It is, in fact, one of the clearest signs that you are growing beyond the frequency of your old life. Imagine a snake shedding its skin. The old skin isn't bad, it served its purpose, protecting the snake as it grew. But eventually, it becomes too tight, too restrictive. For the snake to continue growing, it must let go of what no longer fits. The process isn't graceful. It's awkward, uncomfortable, and even painful, but it is necessary. Without shedding, the snake cannot expand into its next form. This is what you are experiencing when you feel that heavy emptiness inside. The things that once fit you, the roles, the identities, the passions have become like that old skin. They are no longer a match for the person you are becoming. In our culture, we are taught to chase excitement, to constantly fill every space with action and noise. So when you suddenly lose interest in what once mattered, it can feel like a personal crisis. The world might even try to convince you to go back to revive old goals, reignite old passions, and be who you used to be. But here's the truth. This emptiness is a sacred signal. It is your soul's way of telling you, "We're done here. It's time to move on." Just as a tree sheds its leaves in autumn, you are shedding parts of yourself that cannot come with you into the next season. And just like the tree, there will be a period when you appear bare and lifeless on the outside, but deep beneath the surface, new growth is quietly forming. This stage can feel lonely. You might feel disconnected from the people around you. Their conversations may revolve around things that no longer resonate with you. Their concerns may feel foreign, even trivial, compared to what you're feeling inside. It's important to remember you are not wrong for feeling this way. You are simply moving at a different frequency now. And sometimes, as you rise to a higher vibration, not everyone will rise with you. That's okay. Think of a radio tuned to a new station. The old station doesn't stop existing. It's still out there, playing its music, but you can no longer hear it clearly, because you've tuned into something different. During this phase, the mind will want to fix the emptiness. It will tell you to fill it with distractions, with busyness, with anything to avoid sitting in the discomfort. But if you resist that urge and simply allow the emptiness to be, something remarkable happens. You begin to see that this space isn't truly empty at all. It is full of potential. It is the fertile ground where your next self will grow. Like a blank canvas, it may feel intimidating at first, but it's also full of infinite possibilities. I remember a time in my own life when this stage felt unbearable. I had built an identity around certain roles and achievements. When those things no longer mattered to me, I felt lost, like a ghost in my own life. But slowly, as I allowed myself to rest in that space, I began to notice subtle shifts. New insights emerged, almost like whispers in the dark. Tiny sparks of inspiration appeared, guiding me toward a life that felt more authentic and aligned. Looking back now, I can see that the emptiness was never a void. It was a bridge. It was carrying me from who I had been to who I was becoming. So if you are in this stage right now, please hear me, there is nothing wrong with you. You are not broken. You are shedding, just like the snake, just like the tree. Yes, it feels raw. Yes, it feels vulnerable. But it is also profoundly beautiful, because it means you are expanding into a truer, freer version of yourself. Instead of fighting the emptiness, try to honor it. Sit with it. Breathe into it. Let it be the sacred silence between the notes of your life song, because one day, you will look back and realize that what felt like loss was actually transformation. You weren't falling apart, you were simply outgrowing the old skin that could no longer hold the vastness of who you really are. 3. The final test of the old self. As you move closer to the threshold of transformation, there is a moment that feels like life itself is holding its breath. You've been through so much shedding old layers, releasing attachments, sitting through the quiet emptiness that comes with change. And just when you think you're ready to fully step into the new chapter, the old one comes back, almost like a ghost knocking on your door. It may show up as a familiar face, a person from your past, reappearing unexpectedly. It might take the form of a recurring situation, one that once caused you pain or fear, or it could arise internally as a surge of doubt, anger, or insecurity that you thought you had already overcome. When this happens, it's natural to feel frustrated, even defeated. You might think, why is this happening again? Haven't I done enough work? Haven't I already moved past this? But here's the truth, this is not punishment. This is the final test, a sacred checkpoint that ensures you are truly ready to step into the life you've been preparing for. Imagine a doorway between two rooms. Behind you is the room you've outgrown, crowded, dimly lit, filled with memories that no longer fit. Ahead of you is a vast, open space, full of light and potential. As you reach for the doorknob, something inside you hesitates. Part of you wonders, am I really ready to leave this behind? What if I walk through and regret it? The universe sends this test to help you answer that question. Not with words, but with action. It's as if life is gently asking, do you want to keep playing out the old story? Or are you ready to create something entirely new? In this moment, you will be given a choice. The first choice is to react the way you always have, to fall into the same patterns, the same responses, the same fears. This might feel easier in the moment because it's familiar, like slipping back into a pair of worn shoes. But if you take this path, you'll find yourself looping back into the same cycle, replaying the same lessons until you are ready to break free. The second choice is harder, but infinitely more powerful. It is to respond from your new frequency, the higher version of yourself you've been growing into. Instead of reacting out of habit or fear, you pause, you breathe, you ask yourself, who do I want to be in this moment? And then you act from that place of clarity and strength. This test often feels deeply personal because it touches the most tender parts of you. It might involve someone who once hurt you, giving you a chance to either repeat the old wound or heal it. It might bring up a fear that once controlled you, showing you how far you've come or how easily you can still be pulled back. I've experienced this myself, and I can tell you, it rarely looks dramatic from the outside. Often, no one else even realizes what's happening, but inside, it feels like standing at the edge of a cliff, knowing that one small step will determine whether you soar or fall. The beauty of this final test is that it gives you evidence of your growth. When you choose to respond differently, even in the smallest way, you create a ripple effect that changes everything. It's like a key turning in a lock. The old story can no longer bind you because you are no longer feeding it with the same energy. This is what it means to embody your new frequency. It's not about perfection. It's about choosing, moment by moment, to align with the self you've been becoming, the self who lives with more presence, more compassion, more courage. Think of this test like a final exam before graduation. You've spent so much time learning, growing, and preparing. The exam isn't there to trip you up. It's there to prove to yourself that you've mastered the lesson, even if you stumble. The very act of facing it with awareness shows how far you've come. And here's something important to remember. Sometimes, passing the test doesn't mean walking away perfectly calm or without emotion. Sometimes, it simply means staying conscious, noticing your old triggers, feeling the pull of the past, and still choosing to move forward anyway. If you find yourself facing an old pattern right now, pause and take a breath. Remind yourself, this is not a setback. This is a doorway. You are being given a chance to demonstrate to yourself and to the universe that you are ready for the next chapter. The final test is not meant to break you. It's meant to liberate you, to free you from the grip of the past, once and for all. So when the old comes knocking, smile gently and thank it for the lessons it brought you. And then, with grace and courage, turn toward the new. Step across the threshold, knowing that every challenge you've faced has prepared you for this exact moment. The moment when you finally say, I choose differently now. That single choice is what opens the door and invites you fully into the life you were always meant to live. 4. Resistance keeps you stuck. There's a quiet truth we often don't want to hear: what you resist will persist. When you are in the middle of a transition between who you've been and who you are becoming, there is a natural urge to cling to the familiar. Even if the old life was painful, at least it was known. At least you understood its rules, its rhythms, its boundaries. But clinging to what is falling away only creates more suffering. It's like trying to hold on to sand as it slips through your fingers. The tighter you grip, the faster it escapes, leaving your hands raw and empty. In this space of transformation, your old patterns, relationships, and beliefs are like outdated software. For years, they've been running in the background, quietly shaping how you think, feel, and act. They may have been useful once, necessary even, but now they are incompatible with the person you are becoming. Imagine installing a brand new, advanced program on an old computer that hasn't been updated in years. It won't run smoothly. It will freeze, glitch, and eventually crash. This is what happens when you try to carry the old self into a new life. The mismatch between who you are now and who you were then creates tension. The more you resist letting go, the more the tension builds, until it becomes unbearable. Resistance takes many forms. Sometimes it looks like denial, pretending that nothing is changing, convincing yourself that if you just keep doing what you've always done, things will somehow return to normal. Other times, resistance appears as over-efforting frantically, trying to fix, control, or force situations that are already unraveling. Both of these are ways of fighting reality. And here's the difficult truth: no amount of force can stop a cycle that has reached its natural end. I've been through this myself, more than once. There was a time when I sensed that a chapter of my life was closing. Deep down, I knew it was time to let go of certain people, certain roles, certain dreams. But I was terrified. So, I fought. It pushed harder. I told myself, if I just try a little more, if I just do better, maybe I can save this. All it did was exhaust me. The harder I tried to keep the old life intact, the more pieces began to fall apart. It was like trying to rebuild a crumbling house while standing on its collapsing foundation. No matter how much effort I poured in, it couldn't be saved, because it wasn't meant to be. There comes a moment when you realize that your fight isn't noble. It's just a way of postponing the inevitable. And in postponing it, as you prolong your own pain, letting go doesn't mean giving up. It doesn't mean you don't care. It means you are finally ready to stop resisting the natural flow of life. It's like standing in a river. When you fight the current, you exhaust yourself, struggling against something far greater than you. But when you surrender and let the water carry you, you find that it was always moving you toward a new shore. This surrender is not passive. It takes tremendous courage to release control, to stop trying to micromanage the unfolding of your life. It requires trust. Trust in yourself. Trust in the process. Trust in something larger than your limited perspective. When you let go, you create space for the new energy to take root. Like pruning a tree, it may feel harsh at first, cutting away what once felt vital. But without that clearing, there is no room for new growth to emerge. It's important to remember that the transition is not happening to punish you. It's happening because you are ready for more. Your inner world is being upgraded to match the higher frequency you are stepping into. But here's the paradox: that upgrade can't happen if you keep running the old code. Your job is not to fight for what's leaving, but to trust that what is falling away is clearing space for what is rising. This trust isn't always easy. The mind will scream, "But what if I lose everything? What if nothing comes to replace it?" In those moments, pause and breathe. Remind yourself that nature abhors a vacuum. When one cycle ends, another begins. Just as the earth turns from winter to spring without your intervention, your life is also governed by cycles. You don't have to force the flowers to bloom. You simply need to create the right conditions and allow them to grow. So, if you feel stuck right now, ask yourself honestly, are you flowing with the river? Or are you clinging to the rocks? Notice where you are resisting. Notice the places where you are fighting to hold on. And then, little by little, loosen your grip. Because the moment you stop resisting and you begin to move again, the moment you surrender, you create space for grace to enter. And one day, when you look back, you'll see that what felt like destruction was actually reconstruction, life gently rearranging itself to build something more aligned, more expansive, and more beautiful than you could have imagined. 5. The universe's synchronicity becomes clearer. There is a moment on this path of transformation when life itself begins to whisper to you in ways you can't ignore. At first, the whispers are subtle, so subtle that you might mistake them for coincidence. A thought of someone drifts through your mind, and minutes later, they call you out of the blue. You find yourself in the right place at the right time, meeting someone who changes the course of your life. An opportunity appears just as you've gathered the courage to take the next step forward. For years, you may have dismissed these things as luck, random chance, or just one of those things. But when you begin to truly align with the deeper rhythm of the universe, you start to notice a pattern. These are not accidents. They are signs, gentle confirmations that you are moving with the current instead of against it. I often describe this stage as learning to dance with life. When you're out of sync, it feels like you're stepping on the universe's toes, rushing when life wants you to pause, clinging when life is asking you to let go. Everything feels heavy, awkward, full of resistance. But when you start to move in harmony with the flow, something magical happens. Life begins to move with you. The steps come naturally. You don't have to plan every move or force the rhythm. You simply listen, feel, and allow yourself to be guided. These synchronicities are like the music of that dance. They let you know, yes, this is the way. Keep going. When you first notice them, it can feel almost surreal. You might catch yourself smiling, shaking your head, wondering how it's even possible, but over time, you begin to trust it. You start to realize that the universe has always been speaking to you. You were just too distracted by noise and doubt to hear it clearly. Think of it like tuning a radio. When you're out of alignment, all you hear is static random noise that makes it hard to discern any message. But as you clear old patterns and raise your inner frequency, the static begins to fade. Suddenly, the signal comes through loud and clear. That's what synchronicity feels like, the unmistakable clarity of being tuned into the right station. I remember a time in my life when I felt completely disconnected. No matter what I did, everything seemed to fall apart. It felt like the universe was against me, throwing obstacles in my path at every turn. But looking back now, I see that I wasn't being punished. I was simply out of rhythm. I was clinging to things that were meant to leave, forcing doors to open that were never mine to walk through. The more I resisted, the more tangled my life became. When I finally let go, when I stopped trying to control every outcome and started listening to the quiet nudges of my intuition, the world began to shift. I noticed little synchronicities at first, a conversation overheard at just the right moment, a book falling off a shelf with exactly the message I needed, a chance meeting that led to a new beginning. And as I trusted those small signs, bigger alignments began to unfold. It was as if life was saying, "See, you are not alone in this. You never were." Synchronicity is the language of connection. It reminds you that you are part of something vast and intelligent, a web of energy that links every thought, every action, every heartbeat. When you align with your truest self, that web responds to you. It reflects your inner state in the outer world. Like a mirror, this doesn't mean everything suddenly becomes perfect or effortless. Challenges will still arise, but they no longer feel random or meaningless. Even the difficulties come with a sense of timing, a feeling that they are part of a larger pattern you can't yet see. The key to experiencing synchronicity is trust. You must be willing to slow down at threes, to notice the small miracles happening around you every day. It's easy to miss them when you're rushing, when you're locked in fear or doubt. But when you pause and pay attention, you begin to see how deeply supported you are. That missed bus that annoyed you, maybe it saved you from crossing paths with something painful. That rejection you felt heartbroken over, perhaps it cleared the way for something far better to arrive. The universe is always moving pieces behind the scenes, arranging things in ways your mind cannot yet understand. When you start to live this way, tuned in, present, aware, your whole perspective shifts. You no longer see yourself as separate from life, struggling to make things happen through sheer willpower. Instead, you become a co-creator, working with the flow rather than against it. And in that harmony, everything changes. The right people arrive, the right opportunities appear. Even challenges become opportunities to grow rather than reasons to despair. So, the next time something coincidental happens, pause for a moment, smile to yourself, recognize it for what it truly is: a message, a sign, a gentle reminder that you are exactly where you need to be. When synchronicity shows up, it's the universe saying, "You are aligned. Keep walking." The next step will reveal itself when the time is right. And when you trust that truth, you no longer need to force or chase. You simply move with the rhythm of life. And in that dance, you find a deep, unshakable peace. 6. The superposition state. You haven't failed. You're transforming. In the world of quantum physics, there's a fascinating idea known as superposition. It describes how a single particle can exist in multiple states at once, like a coin spinning in midair, neither heads nor tails, but both at the same time. Only when someone observes the coin does it collapse into one clear outcome. Life, in many ways, mirrors this same phenomenon. There are seasons when you feel caught between who you used to be and who you are becoming. It can be deeply unsettling, because nothing feels solid. The old version of you hasn't fully dissolved, and the new version hasn't fully formed. You are living in two realities at once, one foot in the past, one foot in the future, and it feels like you belong to neither. In this space, it's easy to mistake uncertainty for failure. You might look around and think, "Why does nothing seem to be working? Why do I feel so lost?" You might even convince yourself that you're moving backward, that you've undone all your progress. But please hear this: you have not failed. What you're experiencing isn't a collapse, it's a transition. Just like the particle waiting to be observed, you are in a state of pure potential. It may feel invisible, even meaningless at times, but beneath the surface, something extraordinary is unfolding. Think of a caterpillar inside its cocoon. From the outside, it might look like nothing is happening. To the casual observer, it's just a still, lifeless shell hanging from a branch. But inside, a miraculous transformation is taking place. The caterpillar isn't failing to be a butterfly. It's in the exact process of becoming one That's what this phase of your life is like. You are not stuck. You are not regressing. You are dissolving old patterns, beliefs, and identities so that something new can emerge. The very discomfort you feel is evidence of that sacred process. I know how tempting it is to judge yourself during this time. You might look at the external world, at your relationships, your work, your progress, and feel as though you have nothing to show for all the inner work you've been doing. It can feel like standing in a room full of half-packed boxes, surrounded by pieces of both the old life and the new, unable to see how they fit together. But this in-between space is not wasted time. It is the most fertile ground for growth, even if it doesn't look like growth on the surface. In fact, rushing to collapse into the new too soon can disrupt the natural unfolding. Just as a butterfly cannot be forced out of its cocoon before it's ready, you cannot force yourself into the next phase before the inner work is complete. In superposition, both realities, the old and the new, exist simultaneously. Some days, you'll feel like your old self, reacting in familiar ways, tempted to repeat old patterns. Other days, you'll feel glimpses of the new self, a sense of clarity, calmness, and alignment that feels fresh and expansive. Both are valid. Both are part of the process. The key is to stop judging the fluctuations. Instead of saying, "I'm failing because I slipped back into old habits," try to see it as part of the dance between the two versions of you. The old self is still present, but it no longer has the same power. The new self is emerging, but it needs time to stabilize. This phase requires patience, a deep, compassionate patience with yourself and with life. You are learning to hold the tension of the in-between without needing to resolve it immediately. It's like holding that spinning coin in midair and trusting that, when the time is right, it will land exactly as it should. Here's the beautiful thing: the more you rest in presence and trust, the more naturally the collapse will occur. The new reality will reveal itself without you needing to force it. And when it does, you will see how every moment of uncertainty was part of a perfect unfolding. I've been through this space many times, and I know how vulnerable it feels. There were days I thought, I must have done something wrong. I should be further along by now. But looking back, I see that those were the exact moments when the deepest transformation was happening. The silence wasn't absence, it was preparation. The void wasn't punishment. It was the birthplace of a new reality. So if you find yourself here now, hovering between the old and the new, let this be your reminder. You are not lost. You are in the sacred space of becoming. Your job is not to rush the process or demand clarity before it's ready to come. Your job is to breathe, to stay present, and to trust that the unseen forces at work are guiding you toward the exact version of yourself you're meant to step into. When the moment comes, the shift will happen effortlessly. The new reality will collapse into form, just like that particle in quantum physics, and you will finally see what all this uncertainty was preparing you for. Until then, rest in the knowing that you are both the old and the new, held tenderly in this mysterious, miraculous space of transformation. You haven't failed. You are simply in transition, and everything you need is already unfolding within you. 7. The quantum leap happens quietly. Real change rarely arrives with fanfare. It doesn't announce itself with fireworks lighting up the sky, or a triumphant drum roll that lets everyone around you know you've entered a new chapter. True transformation is far more subtle, far more intimate. It often happens so quietly that you might miss it if you aren't paying attention. You might wake up one morning and realize something feels different. Though nothing in your external world has visibly shifted, the same job, the same house, the same people in your life, on the surface, it all looks unchanged, yet somehow, you are no longer the same. The way you see, feel, and move through the world has shifted, as if the lens you've been looking through your entire life has been gently replaced with a clearer one. This is the nature of a quantum leap. It's not about sudden, dramatic changes outside of you. It's about a profound, almost invisible shift within. One day, the things that used to unravel you, the arguments, the disappointments, the old wounds no longer have the same grip on you. You notice that a situation that once would have sparked anger or fear now leaves you strangely calm. The familiar triggers don't pull you under anymore. It's as if you've stepped off the battlefield entirely and realized you were never meant to fight those wars in the first place. In the past, your growth might have been marked by external achievements, leaving a job, starting a new relationship, moving to a different city. But this kind of change is quieter and deeper. It doesn't need to prove itself through big, visible actions. It shows itself in the stillness of your response, in the steadiness of your presence. The world may keep spinning with its usual noise and chaos, but inside, there is a new spaciousness. It's like walking into a room that was once cluttered and noisy and finding it clean, quiet, and filled with light. The same room, but a completely different experience. This shift often feels so natural that you might even question whether anything has truly changed. The mind, always hungry for evidence, may say, "Where's the proof? Where's the big sign that I've arrived?" But the proof is there. It just looks different than you expect. It shows up in the way you move through familiar situations without falling into old patterns. It shows up in the way you speak to yourself with kindness instead of criticism. It shows up in the way you no longer chase what doesn't align with you, because your very energy has shifted. This is the hallmark of a true quantum leap. The outer world may not have caught up yet, but the inner world is forever transformed. I've experienced this myself in ways that left me humbled and amazed. There was a time when I thought change had to be dramatic, that I had to make bold, visible moves to prove I was growing. But over the years, I began to notice that my greatest shifts happened quietly, almost secretly. I remember standing in a situation that once would have broken me open with anger and grief, and instead of reacting, I simply breathed. I didn't need to fight or defend myself. There was no grand moment, no outward display of power, just a soft, steady knowing inside me that said, "This no longer defines me." It was in that quiet moment that I realized the leap had already happened. I didn't have to announce it. I didn't have to prove it. It was woven into who I had become. The beauty of this kind of transformation is that it feels effortless. You don't have to try to be different, you simply are different. It's like a river that has quietly shifted its course overnight. To the untrained eye, it looks the same, but if you stand close enough, you'll see that the current now flows in a completely new direction. And while others might still interact with you based on the old map of who you used to be, you know within yourself that something fundamental has changed. You are no longer available for the same struggles, the same pain, the same cycles. This quiet leap is also an act of profound trust, because in the beginning, it can feel strange to live in a new inner reality, while the outer world remains the same. You might be tempted to doubt yourself, to think, maybe nothing really shifted after all. But if you stay present and patient, you'll begin to see the outer world slowly reflect the inner change. New opportunities will arise. Old situations will naturally fall away. And it will all happen with the same quiet grace with which the leap itself began. So, if you are longing for proof that your growth is real, look inward. Notice the small, subtle ways you've changed. Notice the peace that now lives where there used to be chaos. Notice the strength that no longer needs to shout. The greatest evidence of transformation is not in the fireworks or the drama. It is in the soft, steady rhythm of a heart that is healed. It is in the quiet courage of someone who no longer needs the world to change in order to feel free. This is how the quantum leap happens silently, gently, like the dawn breaking after a long night. The sky doesn't shout that the sun is rising, it simply begins to glow. And before you know it, Everything is bathed in light. 8. Maintaining the new frequency. A lesson in trust. Reaching a new frequency is a profound and beautiful moment. It feels like finally arriving home after a long, exhausting journey. There is a lightness inside you, a calm knowing that flows through your body and mind. For a brief time, it may seem as though everything around you has shifted to match this new energy, the people, the circumstances, even the way the world feels, as you walk through it. But here's the truth. Many don't tell you the journey doesn't end when you reach this new state of being. In fact, this is where a different kind of work begins. Not the exhausting work of pushing and striving, but the quiet, steady work of holding your vibration, even when the external world hasn't fully caught up yet. When you first step into a higher frequency, there's often a delay before your outer reality mirrors it back to you. The old structures of your life don't instantly dissolve. People around you may still see you as who you used to be, responding to old versions of you, not the person you've become. This can feel deeply frustrating, even disheartening. You might think, if I've truly changed, why does everything still look the same? You might question yourself, wondering if the shift was real or just something you imagined. This is where trust becomes essential. The new frequency you've aligned with is like planting a seed. At first, you can't see the growth beneath the soil. There's no visible proof that anything is happening. But deep down, in ways your eyes cannot see, life is rearranging itself to match your inner state. If you keep watering that seed with faith and presence, it will eventually break through the surface. But if you dig it up every day, looking for evidence, you disrupt the process and slow its growth. The danger during this phase is the temptation to seek validation from the outside world. You may find yourself waiting for signs, for confirmation that you've really shifted. But this very act of seeking outward proof can pull you back into the old vibration. It's like a tuning fork. If you strike a tuning fork and hold it steady, it naturally hums at its pure frequency. But if you keep striking it against other objects, it loses its tone and harmony. Your energy works the same way. When you stand firm in your new frequency, it begins to resonate clearly and powerfully. But if you constantly check the outside world, comparing, doubting, asking others to confirm what you already know inside, you muddy that resonance. You start to vibrate at the old, familiar patterns instead of the new ones you've worked so hard to embody. This is why maintaining a new frequency is a practice of inner trust. It's choosing to believe in what you feel inside, even when your eyes can't yet see the evidence. It's remembering that the inner always shifts before the outer, and that there is a natural lag between cause and effect. Think about the seasons. When winter turns to spring, the earth doesn't bloom all at once. First, there are subtle signs, a bud here, a hint of green there. If you judged the entire season by those first quiet days, you might assume spring wasn't coming. But if you trust the process and remain patient, the full bloom always arrives in perfect timing. There will be moments when you are tested. Old situations may reappear, tempting you to fall back into old reactions. Someone may challenge your boundaries or dismiss the changes you've made. The external world may feel slow to reflect the depth of your transformation. These are the moments when your inner work matters most. Instead of reacting from fear or frustration, and you pause, you breathe. You remind yourself, I am no longer who I used to be. By choosing to respond from your new state of being, you reinforce that frequency. Each time you do this, you strengthen it, like muscles growing stronger with use. I've learned from my own journey that maintaining a new frequency isn't about perfection. It's about returning one, again and again, to your center. There were days when I faltered, when doubt crept in, and I found myself slipping back into old patterns. But instead of judging myself, I learned to simply notice and gently realign. Every return is progress. Every moment of conscious choice is a victory. Over time, something beautiful happens. The outer world begins to shift. People start responding to you differently. Opportunities that match your new frequency begin to appear with increasing ease. And one day, you look around and realize that your external reality has finally caught up to the inner transformation you've been nurturing all along. At that point, holding the frequency no longer feels like effort. It becomes your natural state, the way you live, breathe, and exist. So if you are in this delicate stage right now, trust yourself. Don't rush to prove anything to anyone, not even to yourself. Stand steady, like a tree rooted deeply in the earth, knowing that the wind may shake its branches, but cannot uproot its essence. Your task is not to force the new reality into being. Your task is to embody it, to live as though it's already here. Because in truth, it is. When you hold that trust unwavering, quiet, and strong, the universe cannot help but respond. And when it does, you'll see that maintaining the new frequency was never about waiting for life to change. It was about becoming the change, so completely, that the world had no choice but to rise and meet you. 9. The pause before takeoff. There comes a time in every journey when it feels like the world has gone completely still. No progress, no forward motion, just a deep, unsettling quiet. It's as if life itself has pressed pause, leaving you standing in the dark with no sense of direction. You look around and see nothing changing, nothing happening, and you begin to wonder if you've been abandoned by the very universe you've been learning to trust. This stage is one of the hardest to endure because it feels like nothing is happening. Your plans seem to stall, your motivation fades, and even your inner fire begins to flicker. It can feel like being trapped in the darkness before dawn, that moment when the night is at its coldest, and you can no longer remember what the sun feels like. But here's what I've come to understand. Through my own seasons of stillness, this quiet is not emptiness. It is preparation. Beneath the surface, life is rearranging itself in ways you cannot yet see. Just because you can't perceive the movement doesn't mean it isn't there. Think of a seed planted deep in the soil. For weeks, there is no visible sign of growth. To the naked eye, it looks as though nothing is happening, just cold, dark earth. But beneath that surface, an entire miracle is unfolding. The seed is breaking open, roots are stretching downward, and shoots are reaching upward, all in perfect alignment with forces you can't witness. If you didn't know better, you might assume the seed had died. But given time and the right conditions, that hidden process will one day burst into life. Your journey works the same way. When everything feels quiet and stagnant, that is often the exact moment when the most profound transformation is taking place. It's simply happening in the unseen realms. I've experienced this many times, and I know how deeply uncomfortable it can be. There was a period in my life when every door I tried to open seemed locked. No matter what action I took, nothing seemed to move forward. It felt as if I were standing in a void, surrounded by silence. At first, I fought it. I pushed harder, trying to create momentum through sheer willpower. But the more I struggled, the more exhausted and hopeless I became. Eventually, out of pure exhaustion, I stopped. I sat in the stillness and allowed myself to simply be. And in that surrender, I began to notice something subtle. The quiet wasn't empty. It was alive. There was a hum beneath the silence, a sense of deep and visible movement, like the faint vibration of a song too low for the human ear to hear. This stage is like the darkness before the dawn. It's the final stretch before the breakthrough, when everything is being aligned beneath the surface. You may not see the light yet, but it's already on its way. The challenge is that this stage demands trust, a deeper trust than you've ever practiced before. It asks you to believe in the unseen, to rest in the knowing that just because you can't see progress doesn't mean it isn't happening. It's like standing on the edge of a runway at night. with no lights or signs, trusting that at any moment, the plane will roar to life and lift off into the sky. In these moments, doubt will whisper to you. It will say, "Nothing is happening. You're stuck. You've wasted your time." It will try to convince you to abandon your path, to go back to what feels safe and familiar. But if you can stay present through the silence, something extraordinary will happen. One day, seemingly out of nowhere, movement will return. A door will open. An opportunity will appear. And you will realize that the quiet wasn't a dead end. It was the gathering of momentum for your greatest leap forward. The pause before takeoff is like the moment when a bird crouches low before it spreads its wings. To an untrained eye, it may look like the bird is still, even hesitant. But in truth, it is gathering strength. The stillness is part of the flight. Without it, there would be no soaring. So too with you. The lack of visible progress is not failure. It's the necessary preparation for what comes next. During this stage, your task is not to force movement, but to nurture your inner world. Rest, reflect, listen deeply, tend to your spirit the way you would tend to that hidden seed beneath the soil. Your presence and care are the light and water that allow growth to continue, even when you can't see it. When the time is right, life will move again. The external world will begin to shift, often with a speed and grace that takes your breath away. And when it does, you'll look back on the stillness with gratitude, understanding that it was never a pause in your journey. It was the foundation of your transformation. Trust the silence. Trust the darkness before the dawn, because from that quiet, mysterious space, the most powerful leaps are born. Trust and step into the next chapter. The journey you are on is not a straight path. It does not move cleanly from one point to another like a line drawn on a map. Instead, it spirals upward, carrying you through cycles of growth and renewal. Each time you think you've reached an ending, you're not standing at a wall. You're standing at the threshold of a higher level of yourself, ready to rise again. There will be moments when you feel like everything has stopped, when silence fills the space around you like thick fog. You may wonder if you've taken a wrong turn, if you've lost your way entirely, but these moments of stillness are not signs of failure or punishment. They are the sacred womb of rebirth, where life quietly weaves together the next chapter of your story. Just as night must come before dawn, the pause you experience is not the absence of movement. It is preparation. The universe is rearranging itself on your behalf, setting the stage for what comes next. Even when you cannot see the progress, even when it feels like nothing is happening, trust that beneath the surface, everything is aligning perfectly. You don't have to force life to bend to your will. You don't have to push and strain and exhaust yourself trying to control every outcome. When you align with the frequency of your truest self, the part of you that is whole, free, and deeply authentic, life begins to naturally reflect that energy back to you. Your external world becomes a mirror, showing you who you've become on the inside. This is the quiet magic of transformation. It doesn't require you to chase or to fight. It asks only that you become. When you embody the truth of who you are, when you live from that place of deep alignment, the right people, opportunities, and experiences will flow to you with a sense of ease and grace. It won't always be without challenges, but even the challenges will feel purposeful, part of a larger pattern guiding you forward. There was a time when I believed I had to make everything happen through sheer effort. I pushed, I planned, I tried to outthink life itself. But no matter how hard I worked, the results never matched the energy I poured in. It felt like swimming upstream, exhausting and endless. It was only when I began to trust the process, to let go of my need to control, that I discovered a different way of living. Life didn't suddenly become perfect, but it became flowing. I began to see that the universe wasn't against me. It was always guiding me. Even when the path was hidden in darkness, This realization didn't come all at once. It came slowly, like the soft light of morning, filtering through the trees, reminding me that clarity always returns, even after the longest night. So, if you find yourself in a space of uncertainty right now, take a deep breath. Don't rush to fill the silence. Don't try to force the next step before it's ready to appear. Instead, allow yourself to be present in this moment. Even if it feels uncomfortable, trust that you are not lost. You are in the process of becoming the version of you that is emerging as stronger, freer, and more aligned with the deepest truth of who you are. And when the time is right, the next chapter will unfold naturally, without struggle or force. As you step forward, remember this simple truth. You are not here just to survive. You are here to create, to shape a reality that reflects the light within you. This is not about escaping your circumstances or denying your challenges. It's about recognizing that you are more powerful than the external conditions of your life. You are not merely the result of what has happened to you. You are the source, the creator, the one who holds the pen to your own story. And every moment you choose to align with that truth, you reclaim your power. So walk forward with faith. Trust the pauses, the silences, the spaces where nothing seems to be happening. These are not detours. They are sacred preparation for the life that is waiting to bloom through you. Let the universe guide you, gently and naturally, into the chapter that is already written in your soul. A chapter where you don't just live passively, but actively create a reality worthy of the brilliance within you. And when doubt whispers, when fear tries to convince you that you are powerless, remember these words. You are not the product of circumstances. You are the creator, slowly remembering the vastness of who you truly are. Step into that knowing, and let your next chapter unfold with grace, courage, and unshakable trust.